Talk about love. It's one of the themes of this holy night. Adonai, Adonai, El Rachum Vechanun, God of compassion and grace. We appeal to God's mercy and love. And as sure as we recite this liturgy every year, there are some who don't believe it. Some who can't believe it. If God really loves us, why does God allow so many terrible things to happen? We have loving relationships with special people. Those too can become stale. Love is not just an emotion, it's an assignment. Love requires work. Love, like life, is marked by ups and downs. It's a kol Nidre tradition at B'nai Israel that we think about our love of Israel. In 5783, we are marking 75 years. 75 years since the United Nations approved its plan to partition the land into Jewish and Arab states. 75 years of Israeli independence. 75 years is a long time in love. Maybe we shouldn't be surprised if some just aren't feeling it. My mother likes to describe what it was like to dance in the old city of Jerusalem shortly after the city was reunited during the Six-Day War. But that was 55 years ago. We don't dance like that anymore. Barbara Streisand might say, "You don't bring me flowers anymore." We get caught up in politics, disagreements, differing perspectives, but tonight I want to talk about love. A friend recommended a book called The 5 Love Languages by Gary Chapman. Some of you may have read it, and if you haven't, just Google love languages after the fast, and you can find the one-page summary that says it all. Chapman posits that there are 5 love languages: acts of service, receiving gifts, quality time, words of affirmation, and physical touch. And each of us has a preferred language. Often what presents as conflict is actually partners not understanding that they just speak different love languages. A hypothetical situation. My wife feels overwhelmed with work and school and kids and everything else. I come home and try to help out. I set the table. And I can't understand why that doesn't make everything better. Chapman would say, I may be expressing love, but it's the wrong language. I'm speaking the language of service. There's nothing wrong with that. But if she speaks the language of affirmation, it doesn't matter what I do. She wants a compliment. She wants appreciation and gratitude. I have to learn her language. Imagine your partner has a big birthday. You go out and you buy a big expensive gift, and he doesn't seem to appreciate it. Well, says Chapman, maybe your love language is receiving gifts, but he prefers the language of touch. What he really wanted for that big birthday was a hug. So imagine the trouble you would have saved if you could just speak the right language. Different people prefer different love languages. Now, what if the relationship with Israel works the same way? For a long time, Jewish leaders have lamented the growing distance between younger generations and the Jewish state. We wonder if it's an issue of education. Maybe if we just did a better job teaching Israel, maybe if we just taught the facts about the conflict, maybe there's just one program we can offer so they'll finally understand Israel's precarious position in a dangerous neighborhood. But maybe the problem isn't that they don't know. Maybe they understand the facts just fine. Maybe they just aren't appreciating our love language, and we aren't understanding theirs. Because we have different languages for connecting to Israel. Some speak the language of homecoming and safety. That's the preferred language of my parents and grandparents. They remember when the Jewish people didn't have a homeland. They remember when anti-Semitism in this country was significantly more pronounced, much worse than the current, still troubling version. The doors of Eretz Yisrael were locked during the most horrific period of Jewish history. There was no place to escape then, and we said never again. And the state of Israel today must protect narrow borders. It must shield civilians from rocket and missile attacks. And there aren't always partners with whom to pursue peace. We need to understand and appreciate that language. But it isn't the only one. Some people prefer the language of values and ideals. The Jewish state was founded, in the words of its Declaration of Independence, on the values of freedom, justice, and peace, as envisaged by the prophets of Israel, ensuring complete equality of social and political rights to all its inhabitants, irrespective of race, religion, or sex. The Israelite prophets in the Declaration designated Israel as Or LaGoyim, a light unto the nations. They unabashedly held Israel to a higher standard. That's the burden of being chosen. If you appreciate the love language of values and ideals, you have to criticize certain things. Non-Orthodox Jews in Israel deserve to practice Judaism freely. We deserve the same government support the Orthodox receive. Non-Jewish citizens in Israel deserve government funding for infrastructure and education and economic opportunity. Our leaders have a responsibility to keep pursuing a fair and just peace, even when it seems impossible. These are Jewish values, Zionist values, Israeli values. Striving for them is an expression of love. Now, too often, we allow the different love languages to divide us. We talk past each other because we fail to appreciate that security and values are both important languages. We're entitled to our preferences, but we have a responsibility to understand, appreciate, and sometimes even speak the language of the other, because there's only one Jewish state and one Jewish people, even if we speak diverse languages. And when it comes to Israel, there are other languages. There's the language of mitzvot, obligation. Certain mitzvot can only be performed in the land of Israel. A lot of people wonder why so many anti-Zionist Haredi Jews want to live in Israel. Well, it's so they can perform those mitzvot. Now, I don't agree generally with them, but I want to understand and appreciate their language, because they're Jewish too. There's the love language of identity. I love Israel because it's mine. This is where my people originated. This is where my mother was born. This is where I have relatives and friends. This is where I feel most Jewish, because I'm surrounded by other Jews. Israel is part of me. Ein li eretz acheret, as the song goes. I have no other homeland. I could never walk away. And there's the love language of miracles. Modern Hebrew is a miracle. Even Theodor Herzl never dreamed that 9 million people would someday lead normal, modern lives speaking a language that hadn't been spoken for 2,000 years. Startup Nation is a miracle. High-tech, agricultural innovation, advances in water irrigation, cancer research, these are miracles too. And so is kosher for Passover ice cream cones. That one may have had a role in pushing Israel up 3 spots to number 9 on the World Happiness Scale. The U.S. is number 16, by the way. This idea of different languages is nothing new. At the beginning of the last century, we had political Zionists, labor Zionists, religious Zionists, cultural Zionists, revisionist Zionists, all using different language to envision the new state. At times, they used hateful terms for their ideological sparring partners, but they came together because the national project was that important. And it's still that important. As Barry Chazen put it, the agenda for Jewish life throughout most of the centuries was to pray for and remember Zion. The agenda for the 20th century was to rebuild our homeland. The agenda of 21st century Jewish life is to make the state of Israel a central component and force in Jewish identity and consciousness. Our agenda is to love, to speak and understand the language of love, and that takes work. Im eshkachech Yerushalayim, if I forget you, O Jerusalem, said the psalmist, may my right hand forget its skill. Zion is intrinsic to us. It's impossible to separate the people of Israel from the land of Israel, as it would be to separate a limb from the body. We can't lose sight of that. And there are things we can do tonight and throughout the year to express Ahavat Zion, our love of Israel. Using Chapman's love languages, if you like the language of spending time, make plans now to visit Israel. Rabbi Berkowitz is planning a trip this summer, which offers an opportunity to see the land while strengthening relationships with members of your synagogue community. If you speak the language of touch, consider the tradition of kissing the ground upon arrival, because in Israel, even the dirt, even the stones are blessed. If you prefer the love language of affirmation, consider how you might advocate on Israel's behalf. Get involved with AIPAC, read articles, when appropriate, write letters to the editor. Get involved in the political process with either party. Use your social media to affirm the Jewish people's right to live as a free people in its own land. Push back against the hypocrisy that singles out one country for condemnation. One country among the 192 member states of the United Nations singled out more than all the others combined. Surely, there are circumstances that call for introspection and rebuke, but Israel deserves loving affirmation as well. And if you prefer the language of gift-giving, I invite you to open the envelopes at your seats for Israel bonds. Israel bonds are not tzedakah. That would be giving your money away. Israel bonds are an investment. Israel bonds are a statement of faith in the vitality and stability of Israel. Israel bonds are an expression of love. If you look at the back of the cards, you'll see that there are some new options designed to make loving Israel easy. The Mazel Tov bond is available in a very low minimum subscription. The Shalom bond allows you to make a gift to the synagogue or other charitable institution. You purchase the bond, and when it matures in a year or two, it goes directly to the beneficiary organization. Of course, you didn't come to services for financial advice. I offer bonds as a statement of love. Regardless of my preferred language or other concerns, I profess love for this young but maturing experiment called Israel. In recent years, we've worried less about the amount of bonds purchased and more about the number of purchasers, because Israel deserves to know who her friends are, and more purchasers makes a longer list. If you've never purchased an Israel bond, make this your year. If you purchase bonds often, don't stop now. And if you like a little competition, B'nai Israel leads other synagogues almost every year in both the number of purchasers and the total bonds purchased, because this is a community that loves Israel. Consider bonds as a gift for B'nai Mitzvah or other life cycle events. Consider it as a vehicle for charitable giving. Consider it a tangible expression of love. This is our charge for the coming year, to love. Ahavat Yisrael, love the people of Israel and the land of Israel. Ahavat Habriot, love all of God's creatures. Ahavat Hashem, love God. Love with an everlasting love. Speak the languages of love. Pledge to change. Pledge to better honor the ones we love, because love is not just an emotion. Love is an assignment, and we are up for the task. Gemar Chatima Tova, may we and all Israel be inscribed for good in the book of life and love. Amen. We'll give just a moment for the ushers to collect the cards.